That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Hello and welcome to Content and Capable, a podcast all about following your passions while still feeling like a proper adult. My name's Sam and I'm your host. This week I spoke to Casey Winters all about his love of Lego and the changes in his relationship with Lego as he's grown up. Welcome to Content and Capable, Casey. It's lovely to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's always lovely to have some of our WBNA friends on the podcast. It's always, you guys are always so much fun to talk to. And on a day like today, all I want to do is just have a lovely, calm conversation.
Sure, yeah.
As the time of posting as well, actually, the Australian federal elections just finished up, and someone described it as crazy manic pixie energy, where we were running around our newsroom like crazy people. I think I drank more soft drink that night than I ever have in my life. I was on the clock, so I couldn't really get drinking on the alcohol or anything, but it was definitely a night. So I'm looking forward to a much calmer conversation with a very soothing voice. Casey, if for people who may not know who you are, do you want to give a quick rundown on who you are?
Sure. My name's Casey Winters. I formerly host of Hello From Elsewhere. It's a podcast my wife and I hosted together. We talked a lot about pop culture and themes in movies and books, and things got a little hectic, so we ended the podcast, sadly. But I do miss it a lot, and that's possibly where some of the listeners might know my voice. So,
yeah, he's also the voice of the theme, the tag for WBNE.
Oh, that's
as
true.
Well. So
yeah,
if you listen. It's such a great one. I do remember when they did create it, and Ethan, I think, was gushing over the fact how amazing your voice was on that.
It's funny when we ended our podcast, I told the WBNE people, I was like, "We're gone. You can do whatever you want with that intro. Don't feel like you're beholden to my voice." And they're like, "No, we're keeping it." So
it's definitely it's interesting when you meet someone with a almost, I think I would describe it as a very radio appropriate voice.
Oh, thank you.
It's a very, I think people from the US might consider it, PBS kind of theme. I've got a couple of friends of mine who have got these really amazing voices, and it's just like, everyone wants to hear you on air. You've just got the greatest voice. But that's not what we're here for. We immediately got into a tangent. It seems like a common theme at this point. We're here to talk about your love of Lego. So, could you give me a little bit of a background on how you were introduced to Lego?
Sure. I don't really remember the first time. I have an older brother, and so he got into Lego before I did, when he was very young. And so by the time I was old enough to play with Lego, it was just there. It was just in the house. Our house was always covered in Lego. Our bedroom just had Lego all over the place. This was, I was born in 87, so like early 90s was kind of when I got started into it. We had this big blanket that we just had a mountain of Lego. We weren't the type to keep sets built. Generally, we'd build it and then play with it for a little while, but then it would just end up in the pile to sort of build our own stuff. But yeah, that's kind of where it started at a very, very young age.
I'm sure. I know that my mother laments that's why the Lego stays in a cupboard at my parents' place at the moment.
Yeah,
the Lego on the floor, trying to walk into the bedroom, kind of shenanigans. The amount of times I've had people step on Lego,
right,
and just that visceral reaction when you stand on hard plastic.
Sure, yeah, exactly. Not a fun thing.
It's interesting. I was going to ask, were you the kind of kid who kept the sets quite divided up? But it sounds like the chaos model, as I like to call it, of Lego building.
Well, it's funny because it's changed. Like the way I sort of interact with Lego is very different now than from when I was a kid. Like I remember actually going to a friend's house. I was probably a teenager, but he just had all these Star Wars Lego sets built up and on shelves, and some of them were hanging from the ceiling. And I remember in my head thinking, like, why didn't I do that growing up? Like, keep this stuff built. Like, I thought that was so cool. And it wasn't even something that really crossed my mind as a kid. Whereas now, as an adult, we kind of have a mix because I have kids. And so we have a lot of pieces that are loose, but we also have a ton of sets that we just keep built. So
I always felt it kind of was frustrating to see, sets, end up in the pile.
Yeah.
But I always found it more fun to like experiment or make adjustments to the set, especially after you got like a hang. You may have rebuilt the same set 2 or 3 times, and got an idea of how the Lego set worked and was and how it was constructed. I always found that very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what makes Lego such a versatile toy, is that there's so many ways you can interact with it. There are people that build the sets, keep it built and keep it on a shelf. And then there's the people that, don't even build the set at all. They might just buy the set for the pieces and do their own thing. And then there's all kinds of different ways of interacting in between those extremes. And that's kind of what I love about it.
And so, what were some of them? Do you remember many of the builds you made as a kid?
I don't remember a lot of things that we made sort of on our own, but I do remember some of the sets that we got into, like the early Lego castle sets were always fun with dragons and knights, and pirate stuff too was a lot of fun. I remember one of my favorites was like a Wild West fort that we had with some cowboys. That was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that I'm much younger than you, but it was definitely like some of those old sets were some of the first bits of Lego that we got as kids. It was interesting. I was thinking back on it this morning before I sat down to record on where like our Lego came from. And I know that my brothers have like put some crazy hours in to try to sort the Lego. But basically, I think at one stage my dad had all this Lego that he got from his childhood home when they moved my grandfather out. And it just turned up at our house. And it was all this old Lego. There was some like knockoff Lego that was sitting in there somewhere. Yeah. The old school like railway tracks as well. And it was so fascinating to sit there and, look at how those ones worked as compared to, we had, I think, 1 or 2 sets beforehand, and having a look at them compared to each other was pretty amazing.
Right. Well, and the beauty of it is that because I had the same thing. My grandpa had some really old pieces. Like the original Lego piece didn't have the tubes on the inside, so it was just like completely hollow, and so they didn't click very well. But other than that, like the beauty of Lego is that you can have old pieces and they'll still work with the new stuff. And I think that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, and you can definitely see like how they've aged. And it almost reminds me of all things of Cars 2, where, Mate is talking about the dents and how they memories and stuff. I was just like, each like piece then kind of tells a story of like how they were used, which is pretty amazing as well.
I love that.
Did you continue with Lego into your teenage years, or was it something that kind of faded out as you got into like high school and stuff?
Yeah, it kind of waxed and waned. Let's see. So by the time I was probably 12-ish is kind of when I started to get out of it, which is a shame because that would have been 1999, which is right when the year when Lego finally branched out into intellectual property, and so Star Wars Lego became a thing. Which is something I'd been dying for as a kid. Like we would always try to make our own Star Wars things before Star Wars Lego was a thing. But by the time Star Wars Lego came on the scene was kind of when I was starting to get out of it. But then, when I was probably 16 or 17, I kind of got into it a little bit. We had some neighborhood friends that had Lego, and so we would each have our own like kind of city or area that we would build in our own houses, and we kind of go back and forth between different houses and play and do fun stuff. And but then it kind of I didn't play as much after that either, and it wasn't until we had our first kid, our first son. He was kind of old enough to start playing Lego that we started to buy a set here and there, and he loved it. And so that was kind of what rekindled my love for it, as well as the Lego movie actually was really big for me. Like I watched the Lego movie and what was that, 2014, and kind of fell in love with Lego. Felt a lot of nostalgia for it. And so that's kind of, those two things kind of combined to spark my re-interest in it.
Yeah. And, when you were engaging it then as a parent, was that engagement different again?
Yeah, probably. I think so. Like it was more, it was exciting to watch him, and, I've had more kids since then, to watch them play and build, and and also just to see the different ways they do it. Like my daughter is not really the type that she really likes to build, but she likes when sets are built in a way that she can play with them, but she doesn't actually love the building process. Whereas my son, he is really into a bit of both, and he really loves just building his own things and coming up with his own ideas. Whereas now as an adult, I tend to, although I love watching them and how their minds work, and I'll occasionally sit down and play with them, but generally I just love just having a cool set on the shelf that I can kind of just look at. And that's kind of my way of interacting now.
And is that dichotomy of the Lego that your kids want to play with, and, the Lego that you just want to, look at, is that do the kids want to play with the Lego sets that you want to look at, or,
A little bit. It depends on the set, and I'm not precious about it. They're still toys, and I'll still, if they want to get them down, we'll get them down and play around with them. But it kind of depends on the set. Like I have some of the big, I have one of the big Ultimate Collector Star Wars ones, which isn't really super playable anyways. But some of the other sets that are playable that I have on the shelf, we'll get them down. Get them down every once in a while. And that's not to say I don't build either. I'll go through periods where I'll try to build my own things with kind of our loose pieces and just kind of tinker and mess around. And I really love doing that. I just don't have a lot of time, as much time as I would like to do that. So
you almost need a really rainy week where everyone's stuck at home and you've got no work, no job, jobs to do around the house, and and then just put on some music, get in some comfy clothes, and play some Lego. Right. That sounded different from what was in my head.
I get what you're saying. Well, I work.
Yeah, but
I was just gonna say I work in education too, so that's nice, and I get summers off, and that's kind of, I have a little bit more time during the summer to kind of jump into more of my hobbies in that way. So that's nice.
While, as you said, creating your own pieces as well with whatever loose parts, are those loose parts still a collection of sets that, may now be slightly incomplete, or, or is it a bit more generic or more purpose
It's
created?
kind of a bit of everything. So I, a few years ago, I actually worked at a Lego store, which was my absolute favorite job. I would have stayed there forever. But it's not exactly a job you can support a family on. I was working there while I was going to graduate school, and I just needed a kind of a part-time job. And, and I started there and I loved it, and I became a manager there for a little while. So I worked there for a couple of years. But the beautiful thing about working at a Lego store is they would have first of all, they would have the discount, which is really nice. But then also we would have, if you've ever been to a Lego store and I'm not sure if they're the same where you're at, but in the United States, they have a big wall at the back of just pieces that people can fill a cup with and buy a cup full of pieces, right? But pieces would fall on the floor, and those pieces would get swept up and then put into a bin in the back. And then we'd also, if we didn't get any sets that arrived damaged from shipping, we'd have to put those loose pieces in those bins. And those bins were kind of like, they were going to get sent back to Lego to get sort of recycled and remelted. But our store was really cool. And they're like, if you want any of these pieces, take them home. And so I would often just take pieces. We would also get to build like the display sets at work, but the display sets would get cycled through. And so when the display was done, they would kind of give it to, employee of the month or whatever. And so I would just kind of gradually accumulate a lot of pieces plus some sets, and then plus the discount. So I have a lot. and so we've got a lot of bins. We've got them sorted by color, which is a lot of fun. And most of those loose pieces are from working at the Lego store.
Yeah. And as you said, they're sorted by color. Do you every now and then decide that you want to reorganize it, or is it pretty set in its ways there?
I've thought about reorganizing it by type of piece before. I think it would be handy to have it that way, but it also would be a giant undertaking. And if I don't have time to just sit and tinker, I definitely don't have time right now to do a whole resorting. And I think the kids like it by color. I think it's easier for kids to do it that way. Yeah. Maybe as they get older, it might be a more appropriate way to sort them by type or function. But right now, color is kind of what works for us, and it's pretty to look at too. So
yeah, it's one of those things you look at it and you go, I'd love to reorganize it, but I feel like this is going to take way longer than I ever expected.
It would take forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you said, you play Lego with the kids and, you create your own sets. What does that look like, nowadays? Is that kind of, the kids all of a sudden have the urge to pull out the Lego, or is it, something, let's go and play Lego, trying to move on from, I don't know, something else that's going on in the house or whatever?
Well, it's in the kids' bed, or two of the oldest kids. It's in their bedroom, and it's kind of just there. And my son, especially, he plays for hours every day. Like, it is his chosen pastime. My daughter will play, and my daughters will play occasionally with him. And then we have a little toddler who's just kind of discovering Lego, but he's still at the age where he's kind of putting things in his mouth. So we kind of keep him out of the way. But in just a few months, he'll probably be done with that and be ready to mess around with them. But as far as me kind of joining in, I try to, a few times a month, a couple times a month, kind of just join in and play around with them. My son usually has some sort of Star Wars game, some sort of Star Wars story that he's going with and wants me to join in. And
yeah. And have you noticed, changes in the way that your kids, play with Lego, especially as they've grown older? And, as you said, your little boy is a toddler, or what, does that change, has he changed his ways in, like, playing with, like, Lego as he's grown older, or,
Yeah, like my oldest son, at first he didn't really like to build just because it was frustrating. Like, it was new. He wasn't very good at it. And so I think it's a good way to teach kids in general just to keep at it, because now he's building things that are awesome. And he's, 9 years old, and he's building things I would never have thought of. And so that's really cool to see. And he'll cycle through things. Like, he'll be really into Star Wars for a little while, and then he'll kind of move on, and he'll be really into Jurassic Park dinosaur stuff for a little while, and then he'll be into just kind of regular city stuff. So that's fun to see. He'll kind of just cycle through what's interesting him at the time. So
yeah, that's it's definitely very fascinating. And you got some older kids as well. Are they changed? Are they a bit more now imaginative play kind of things, or are they more interested in the building?
Well, that was my oldest that I was just talking about. So he, so he's the one that's kind of cycles through, and then my daughters are my one daughter, 4-year-old. She's really into animals, so like she'll just find all the animals that she can find in the buckets and just play around with those, and then my other daughter, she will kind of just play along with, what the oldest is doing. She's 6, the 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So she's not as interested in it. That not that she doesn't like Lego, but she'll kind of just go along with it. But she tends to have other things that she's playing with or doing, unless she wants to join in the fun. So.
Yeah. And looking, further out. Obviously, you said you worked with, Lego for a little while you were doing your degree. Did you has there been a point where kind of like your love and your passion of Legos kind of spilled out into, like, I don't want to say the real world, but like, into your everyday life, and you've kind of realized, or it's kind of come up in conversation?
Yeah, actually. So since I mentioned I work in education, and I've got quite a few Lego sets just kind of hanging around my office. And so it'll come up sometimes, usually with the kids, actually, that the kids will bring it up, or I work one-on-one with kids. And so sometimes we'll say, well, at the end of what we're doing, we can get out the Lego and just play. So that's fun that it kind of has become part of my job. Almost tangentially, that it doesn't have to be part of my job, but it kind of is. It's really funny because sometimes my office door is open, and I unintentionally cause sort of traffic jams in the hallway because kids will be walking by and be like, "Oh, Lego," and they'll just like stop and look at them, and then the teacher's like, "Go, keep walking, keep walking." So I'm causing hallway problems.
Look, if you're not causing minor disturbances, I don't think teachers. I don't know. The more catchy a teacher's office is, or like a teaching area is, I always find it's always more engaging. Kids, what's happening in there?
Yeah, exactly.
I would love, I'd love to be, if I ever went into teaching, I would love to be the teacher that caused traffic hallway problems.
Right. And and part of it too is it helps. So I'm a school psychologist, and so I have to work, like I said, one-on-one with kids, and often they haven't met me before, and so it's a good way to sort of break the ice and help kids just feel like comfortable. I've got cool stuff in there. We can kind of just relax. It really, really helps in my job.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, kids are looking at the Lego and they're pointing it out. Do you think that the interest that kids have in Lego is as high as it was when you were a kid, or do you think it's lower or higher?
I
based
think
on your experience.
Maybe I'm biased, but I feel like kids are into it just as much. Like everyone seems to know what Lego are, and I feel like that's always been the case as long as I can tell. And when I worked at the Lego store too, it was the same thing. Like it was the best job, and kids just went wild for that store, and that was so fun.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I definitely just the knowledge of like what Lego is, and the fact that everyone most people have had some sort of a Lego experience is just amazing. And I think it's one of those kind of like universal things of being a kid that has kind of like now spilled into a lot more adults are getting into Lego. There's more of an adult fan of Lego community. Have you experienced much of that community?
I mean, yeah. And when I worked at the Lego store, we would have, it was almost 1-to-1 of these sets are for the kids or these sets are for the adults in terms of the customers that were coming in. A huge portion of them were just adults buying sets for themselves. And those were always fun people to talk to as well, just because we could geek out about it and being a fan myself. And most of the people that worked there were fans as well. That was a really fun way to kind of engage the community, was being part of that.
Yeah. And wow, it's just pouring outside. Sorry, it's
Oh,
very
you're good.
distracting. It's rained every weekend for like the last 3 weeks here. It's just been crazy. Like you'd have like maybe a day or two of sun in the middle of the week, and then
Yeah.
it just pours.
I get it. We've
and it's
got
like
we've had
winter.
snow this week, and that doesn't make any sense because it's supposed to be springtime and getting nice, and yeah, it should not be snowing.
Yeah, yeah. We're supposed to start winter in a couple of days. I'm not looking forward to this kind of winter. It's gonna be wet and miserable.
Yeah.
Normally, and because I live like in the tropics, normally the wet season is during the summer. This is just this very late wet
that's
season
weird.
kind of weather. Yeah. In the adult fans of Lego community, as you said, you interacted with them a lot when you worked in that Lego store. Have you interacted with them, outside of working for Lego?
Not as much, like a little bit here and there. I've always been a little bit intimidated just because, like I said, I really like to build and it's something I want to get better at, but I also feel like I'm still kind of learning and always learning. And some of those adult fans are pretty intense just in terms of their ability level. And so I've been pretty intimidated to kind of branch out into that, but it's something that I've kind of wanted to do, and I might, in the future. But
do you keep tabs on interesting creations that you've seen in the Lego community? Do you keep tabs on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like on social media, I often will follow certain people or save things that just look cool, and I'm like, oh, I'd like to try something similar to that. Or Pinterest is really good for that, and Instagram too. And so yeah, I'll definitely follow pictures or screenshot stuff that seems interesting to me. Or yeah, that's definitely something I do.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And do you do you ever get like the urge to kind of drop everything and just work on some big Lego big plan Lego creation instead of doing what you probably would normally be doing in your spare time?
Yeah, definitely. And it's it comes in waves. Like I'll just get kind of hit with inspiration of, what, I want to build. It's a little bit tricky having kids and especially having the little one to kind of carve time out for it. But and also I feel like my back isn't great for sitting on the floor and building for long periods anymore. I need like a building table or something, because just as I get older, that's harder, and kind of I guess that's one of the plights of adult builders probably. But yeah.
And you've been engaging with Lego for almost 40 years. Have like the products changed a lot what has been some of the more significant changes in like Lego that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think the biggest one was like I mentioned, when Star Wars and Harry Potter as well were kind of the first big properties, and it kind of just took off from there in terms of getting superheroes, and then Lord of the Rings for a little while. So that's been fun to see. And I would always kind of get frustrated with people that would come into the Lego store that were like, oh, I wish Lego was like it used to be, when it was just bricks, which isn't actually true, because Lego was never just bricks. They used to have little metal trees and little metal cars, and it really was never just bricks. And if you want just bricks, there's plenty of avenues for that, of just buying a box of bricks. But yeah, it's changed a lot over time. And then as you mentioned too, I think in recent years of having sets that are pretty explicitly aimed toward just adults. I'm trying to think of specifics, but things like there was a Stranger Things set, and there's a lot of like TV shows they're doing now. Like there was the Friends TV show set, and the Queer Eye set, which is actually a really cool set that I got. These things that are typically not aimed toward kids, I think that's kind of been a big shift, as well as like the modular buildings. Those are generally aimed toward the adults too, which are a lot of fun. And That's kind of been a
Yeah.
big, kind of a gradual change, I think, but a big one.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I find it very fascinating. That the you know the different sets, especially for different intellectual properties, have had so much influence in like what new pieces are created by Lego and stuff
Yeah.
too. Kind of add. As you say, you wanted to make Star Wars sets as a kid. I wouldn't be surprised if you were, trying to make your own lightsabers and,
Yeah.
trying to figure that kind of stuff out, which is,
Right.
it's definitely very interesting, and very resourceful as well, actually, of all things.
Yeah, it took a lot of creativity, like using different pieces that's like, this almost kind of looks like Darth Vader, but it really doesn't. But but when you're a kid, it's like that's all you had. Or like we'd use like a little rod piece as the lightsaber, but they didn't make the little lightsaber hilt pieces, so you kind of just had to use what you had. But yeah, there was probably some resourcefulness, but I was always hoping and wishing that someday Star Wars would become a thing, and then it did. So
Yeah. And different also like different approaches to Lego building. You got like things like Technic and other I forget, other stuff, other like, sets of bricks and stuff that have, a slightly different, in a slightly different vein. It's just so fascinating, and I'm really looking. I always look forward to seeing the new sets and the new pieces and the new approaches that Lego has taken. Yeah. Looking further afield, creating the different scenes or different designs. Do you find that that's something that is a relaxing thing, or is that something that kind of happens to as like an outlet for creativity, as less of a relaxation kind of thing?
No, I find like building Lego and just kind of sitting and trying to solve a problem, but it is very therapeutic, I think, in a way that's different than any other creative outlet I would find. I think it's extremely relaxing, and I'd hear that all the time from other people and fans of how calming it can be. And I'm sure there's people out there that don't find it that way, but the vast majority of people that I talk to in that vein, and if that comes up, I think that people find it relaxing. And I tend to have a lot of anxiety, and so it definitely helps me calm down. And I think it's part of it. Maybe it's because of the focus and specificity of it, which is really great.
Yeah, and also the fact that it almost forces you to work slow as well. Like you can't, there's in my eyes, and I know that there are TV shows. There's a TV show here in Australia called Lego Masters, which is like a competitive Lego building kind of TV show. It's an amazing show. I highly suggest people go and check it out if they want. But I know that a lot of like there's a limit to how fast you can build kind of Lego things. You've got to prepare the pieces and put them all together. While it would be great if you could speed things up or slow things down, it kind of forces you to kind of go at a set pace, which is I suppose almost meditative, really.
Yeah, for sure. And it also, like, I think you're right. It forces you to slow down, and also forces you to go backwards a lot. Like it forces you to realize that, oh, this is a mistake, or the direction this is going isn't working, and I need to either scrap it or go backwards in this little part of it. And I think there's a lot of positive lessons to be learned in that, and positive feelings, I guess.
Yeah, and then like the problem solving that comes associated when you're trying to, solve some sort of design problem. Or I know I loved making like realistically sized, houses for, the minifigures. And so like trying to make sure the minifigure could fit through the door or something like that. Yeah. Especially when we didn't like back when I didn't have like dedicated door like pieces, we just kind of like made all of these as archways.
Sure. Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. And I don't know, it's almost like, you know, Lego kind of it's almost like a video game where you kind of get like so invested in it that time melts away around you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about, well, other than being an adult and, you know, maybe having jobs and
Right.
work you should be doing, but you don't have to worry about anything else, you
Yeah.
know, around you. You can just like sit down and focus on one kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah. Stuff kind of melts away.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit. Did you get involved in like the real technical side of Lego building? Or were you more of the kind of like person who would, you know, play creatively and kind of like do things, you know, kind of your own way?
I was always more of I always played it kind of an imaginative way. Like the story of it was always more interesting than the build itself. Now the way it's funny because I'm not hands-on really in anything in my life. I don't really have an engineering kind of brain. I'm not particularly crafty. So I think that when I find success in something that I'm building, it feels extra special because that's not generally the way my brain works. And I think it helps that, I don't know how to describe it. It helps that Lego is endlessly, it's just such a good artistic medium, I think, because it both forces you to follow the rules, but there's also ways of kind of bending the rules and finding your own creative way of doing that. And I don't know if that really answered your question, but that's kind of the thought that came to mind.
No, I definitely think, you know, and it's fascinating because you don't have mediums like this that are so creative. You know, you think of, you know, the different mediums you may see art through, and a lot of them end up being, you know, there's lots of different styles and approaches to it, but they're often quite restrictive.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Lego is, you know, this kind of all-encompassing, you know, you can have these huge mosaics or, you know, these really, really tiny, you know, models, or, you know, you could go these big, almost life-size kind of, you know, 3D models through to, you know, the tiny simple house that you probably made as a 5-year-old. You know, there's all of those. There's so much room for expression and growth and change. It's maybe, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know of any other artistic medium that's reusable either, in the sense that once you're done with building something, you can break it again and use it for something else. You know, that's not something you can generally do with paint or, you know, really any other medium that's quite so recyclable, reusable.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think also, like, because Lego lasts for so long as well, I haven't researched, you know, how much Lego gets thrown out, for example, but you know, because it is so tough and it lasts for so long, that, you know, it stays on. You know, as both you and I have said, you know, a lot of the first Lego we interacted with came from parents and grandparents, rather than, you know, buying it outright new.
Right.
And it really goes to show how much longevity the product has.
For sure.
Definitely. It's really, really just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
You know, you also mentioned you had, you know, a lot of you've worked a lot with the kids. Is your wife involved a lot, or is it kind of just something that, you know, she lets you and the kids run around with?
She, I mean, she's not as involved maybe as I am, but she enjoys it. Like we'll do things like we'll buy, a couple of times for like Valentine's Day, we bought like one of the bigger modular sets, and we'll kind of take turns and build. And so she likes that process of building. She doesn't, play as much, and she's kind of at the point now where she's like, we have enough Lego, we don't need to buy any more. But which is accurate. We don't really have space for it anymore, and that's fine because we got tons of it and plenty of it. But so yeah, she's not opposed to it in any way, and she'll build stuff with us. She likes. I think that's her favorite part, is following the instructions and building the set and getting the finished product. But kind of after that point, she's not as involved.
Yeah. It's always interesting, like different, when different people are like, I just prefer following the instructions and building the set.
Right.
And, on one hand, it's like, it's quite satisfying to, complete a task and, not have any loose ends. But then also, there is that almost childish kind of, but, what if we, either played imagination with it or, created or added to it or, disassembled it and reassembled it, or, disassembled it and used it to reassemble something completely new.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And what kind of, like, I don't know, looking to the future, what kind of relationship do you want to have with Lego in the future? Would it be the same, or would you like to see something different?
I think for me personally, I just want to get, just spend more time with it in terms of the building and just getting better at it. And I think maybe interacting with the fans a little bit more, and just kind of using it as another creative outlet has always been fascinating to me. And it's just about making the time for it. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on Content and Capable. I've really appreciated having you on and chatting to you.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. I just actually started kind of sharing some of my photography. That's kind of a newer hobby. And so I just started sharing that. I'm on Instagram at Spectacles Case. If you're interested in it, it's kind of a new thing. I'm kind of an amateur at it and a student of it, but it's something that's really interesting to me as well. And I might even take some Lego photography here and there on there. So kind of related.
Has there been any media, books, movies, TV, podcasts, music that you've been consuming that you wanted to plug?
Oh man.
It's always a hard one.
Watching movies, reading books, trying to think what's like. I've had like a crazy year where so many of the things I've consumed have become like new favorites, and I don't know why that is, if I'm just open to it and it's happening or what. But I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I know has gotten a lot of hype, but it's a fantastic movie, and it kind of it's life-changing. So I think that's probably what I would recommend.
Yeah, sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to have to have a look at that. You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at sam.the.journalist and on Twitter at samobjournalist. I apologize to everyone who was following me before this and my dismal social media presence for the election coverage. I ended up sitting... Someone just turned around to me last night and said, "Your head is so far into that computer, I don't think I can ever get you out." Yes, definitely check me out there. I am going to plug AJR's album, OK Orchestra. I have been listening to the whole album basically on repeat for the past week. It's just really interesting and fun to listen to. I've gotten tickets to go see them when they come here to Australia later this year. So I'm really looking forward to hearing them live.
Yeah.
I know that they're touring the US at the moment, I think, from memory. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Casey, for coming on Content.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved having you on. And all the best with your future with Lego. I
Thank you.
can't wait to see the. I'm sure we'll see some photos on Instagram at some stage of some of the amazing creations.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. You can follow the podcast socials at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter. You can send an email to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com. Please give us a review on iTunes or Spotify to help others know that you love this podcast. The art was done by Opia. You can follow them at opia_art_. Opia is spelled OPIA. Feel free to message them about making art for your project. Our music was written, recorded, and edited by Isabel Strauss-Riggs. You can find Izzy at Kane_I. That's I is in the body part. On Instagram and Twitter, and on YouTube at KaneI with no spaces. Feel free to message her about making music for your project or editing your podcast. Content and Capable is proud to be a part of the Movie Night Crew network, which features the Movie Night Crew, where a bunch of friends react to some terrible, some meh, and some really great movies.
Alrighty.
It's movie night.
Grab your popcorn,
Grab your coffee.
Grab your friend.
Grab a cat.
Let's go.
who directed this?
What year did it come out?
Is that girl from that show?
Who wrote this?
Where's the cat?
Who would you rather bang?
Pass the popcorn.
Does this pass the Bechdel test?
What about the Steve Buscemi test?
Does a woman literally speak in this movie?
Oh my god, a dog.
This reminds me of in Harry Potter when...
Are we recording?
What did the critics say?
It's a guilty pleasure.
What's your rating?
Can you be quiet?
Oh my god.
Movie Night Crew.
It's just like watching movies with your friends.
And then arguing about it after.
Every Sunday, wherever you get podcasts.
Content and Capable is a podcast all about answering the question, how do you adult? Don't forget to rate and review, and I will see you next Monday for another episode.
That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.